Stritch Jams, interviews, playlists, and college. Music and art have always had an inseparable relationship. Many artists have found inspiration in music or have tried to bring the music into imagery. I usually listen to music when I paint, and that unconsciously creates the mood of my painting. Also, history has shown that I am not the only one whose art was inspired by music. As we cannot talk about Austrian artist Gustav Klimt without music. There are many musical factors in his paintings as seen in the work titled Der Beethoven Fries. He drew this piece while listening to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony in hopes to cherish the memory of Beethoven. If we compare the notes of the Ninth Symphony, we see Klimt use person and blank space to express the emotion high and low in the music. Stritch Sketch, inspiring, creative, and satisfying. Hi, my name is Brian Franco, and I will be your host today as we find out how music influences people's work of art. Now, people might think that dark music will make the painting heavy, and beats with loud and positive music may change the mood of the painting and make the painting bright. But not exactly. We have gathered some interviews to share from artists at Stritch University. First, we interviewed Tim Ambler, professor at Cardinal Stritch University and chairman of the art department. How long have you been working in your position?
I've been here since 1980, and that would be somewhere in the realm of 34 years or 35 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was a very young teacher when I first started teaching.
And tell us more about your artwork.
Well, my artwork personally is I'm a photographer, so much of the work I do is out in the world. And what I mean by that is that I don't work in a studio. I don't pose people. I don't work to make a living as a photographer. I photograph because I have to. That's part of my passion, and so I travel. I enjoy photographing on the street, which would basically be going downtown or into a city or a small town or village. And most of my work in the last 20 years has been done while I travel in Mexico. So I've spent a lot of time in Oaxaca and been photographing the traditions of Dia de los Muertos, and that's been a big part of my work for years. I don't manipulate my photographs. I print them. I try to make them look real and accurate, and so I'm not a digital photographer like many people are today, but I do use digital. And so I do use film as well, but not as much anymore.
I suppose you have many inspirations and things that inspire you when you take pictures and
Sure.
Do your art as well. Is there music involved? Does music inspire you?
Music is constantly playing in my head, not literally, but I'm listening to the sounds of the environment itself. So if there's buildings that are going up in the vicinity of the place that I'm photographing, there's rhythms to that sound that I can associate with whatever music tends to blend into that area from the neighborhood. I don't wear headphones. I don't listen to music when I'm photographing. I'm not talking about, what's on my iPod or pad or phone or whatever. But music has a lot to do with how I photograph.
Also, along with that, I wanted to ask why and why not? Why would you not listen to music while you?
Because I want to make sure that as a photographer, I'm listening to my images in a way that there are things that are important that are related to sound that affect the way I make a photograph. Part of it could be backing up, getting further away. Part of it could mean getting closer. Part of it could be paying attention to the sound so that that juxtaposition of how I make that photograph is affected by the sound. I mean, sound is music to me, so it does not have to be, a top 40 piece, if that makes any sense.
Also, what type of music do you tend to gravitate towards when you are listening to music and if you're working with?
So I'm a child of the 70s, so Creedence Clearwater Revival, Elton John, Bon Jovi, Bruce Springsteen, who I met when I was a student your age, and he was first touring with Born to Run. So those are my heart, and they're storytellers in many ways, many of them. So it's really about the story that they tell through their music. Yeah, those are some that come to mind really quickly. Bonnie Raitt, in terms of, as a musician, I think she's amazing. I grew up with James Taylor, when he was coming up. So those are people that I still listen to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have a favorite to listen to? In terms of, we'll start with song. Do you have a favorite song?
There's a group called America. I don't know if you ever heard of them. They were really prominent in the 70s. There's a song that they did called Tin Man, which is a ballad, essentially, of Sir Galahad. And it's a story about the Tin Man as Sir Galahad and his adventure, essentially. And as a high school student, I was always very into Arthurian legend. And when I heard this music, and then I heard the lyrics, and I heard them talking about Sir Galahad, I was like, oh, I gotta have that album. This is great, this is my story, right? And so that was a song that affected my life for a long time. In fact, most of my passwords, just so you know, are Galahad. And then there's a series of numbers after that. So I have about 16 passwords with Galahad, blah, blah, blah. So, and I'm always forgetting the passwords, but I always remember Galahad. So.
That's the most important part. Okay. And do you have a favorite album?
Listen to a lot of film scores. John Williams is probably my favorite, director of film scores. So I tend to listen to a lot of epic sorts of performances that might be related to movies and visuals again. So I guess I would have to say things like 2001: A Space Odyssey is a really great score. Any of the Star Wars films are great scores. So I tend to listen to those albums more so than, let's say, just people. That was that.
In terms of creativity, I know that there's a lot of creativity that needs to be put into artwork as well as music. How can you get creativity from music?
Sometimes silence is very inspiring. Sometimes, I've spent a lot of time in a dark room printing, so I can crank up music in there all the time so that it's so loud I can't even hear the exhaust fans. Springsteen would get me to a point of making a print, and guess what? My prints were all way too contrasty. They were over the top. They were completely out of whack. And I realized it's the music. I'm printing like a crazy person because of the music, so I had to tone it down. And then, so music does affect how you actually create your art. So it's important to identify the types of music you want to be a part of your visual work.